One of the many joys of science fiction, a bit like the fantasy genre, is that even in its most basic form, it can be used as a vehicle to escape the tedium of our everyday reality. Honestly, there was no better feeling back in the day than walking into a cinema knowing you were about to be treated to a 2-hour sci-fi joyride from James Cameron, Ridley Scott, Steven Spielberg, or George Lucas, all of whom in their heyday created some of the best and now classic science fiction movies of the modern era. Sci-fi is so malleable that it can easily shapeshift between genres, themes, and narratives all within the same film or novel. Stories can take place in the future or past, dystopian or utopian, in the far reaches of space, in, on, or above Earth, with aliens or without them, and can be underpinned by either hard science fiction or soft science fallacy to hold the narrative together. The possibilities are seemingly endless for good stories, some of which effectively use sci-fi as a Trojan horse to explore real-world and sometimes uncomfortable themes. Remind me to do a deep dive on District 9 at some point, because that film does just that and I bloody love it. So when I heard Mickey 17, based on the popular sci-fi novel Mickey 7, was receiving a movie adaptation from director Bong Joon-ho, the director of Parasite, I was very keen to escape reality for a couple of hours and watch a sci-fi dark comedy that subtly explored the themes of cloning and space colonization.
This brick stores your memories, right? Now you'll watch as I permanently delete your being from it. That way you'll understand the meaning and terror of finality. No more reprints! That's what you both should be thinking when you die.
You big, stupid jellyfish.
Yeah, I guess that was a bit too much to hope for in the current Hollywood climate, but let's take a salty swim regardless. Fair warning, there are spoilers ahead. Mickey 17 is set in the year 2054 and follows the character of Mickey Barnes, played by Robert Pattinson. Mickey is the only expendable member on a mission to colonize the icy planet of Nilfheim, led by failed congressman and Christian zealot Kenneth Marshall, played by Mark Ruffalo. Expendables are dispensable crew that are tasked with the occupational health and safety inspector wet dream jobs. You know, a bit like the ones from those old Aussie WorkSafe ads. Jesus Christ, they were grim. As expendables can be 3D printed using cloning technology whenever they die. A job that Mickey applies for following a run-in with a loan shark on Earth with a penchant for videoing dismemberment of late payment clients. Following several increasingly grisly and sometimes comical deaths and a failed attempt to capture a local creature called a creeper, Mickey 17 is presumed dead and replaced by a new clone, Mickey 18. However, Mickey 17 survives, following some unexpected assistance from the creeper creatures. He returns to the colony ship, naturally leading to conflict between the two versions, as they vie for the attention of the same girl and seek to avoid detection and subsequent decommission, as multiples are seen as a threat to humanity, following a series of grim murders by the man that invented the human 3D printer. It doesn't take long for Mickey 18, the more assertive of the two clones, to try kill Mickey 17 and dump him in the incinerator, and from this point forward, I will be calling him Rob 17 for convenience. Mickey 18, who I will also call Android 18 from this point on, is interrupted by Timo, Mickey's best friend from Earth, who is secretly using the incinerator to dispose of waste product generated by his manufacturing of space meth. In short order, Android 18 attempts to kill Timo, but is interrupted by his girlfriend, Nasha, played by Naomi Aki, and her security patrol before talking his way out of trouble and escorting her back to his quarters to do space meth, naturally. Rob 17 attempts to follow them and cockblock himself, only to be waylaid by the colony ship mascot, telling him he's been awarded a dinner with the colony president.
Please do not resist.
He attends the dinner alongside a beautiful lesbian crew member before having an allergic reaction to the genetically engineered non-organic beef. Marshall then decides to put a bullet in Rob 17's skull to stop his suffering. After all, he is a clone. But beautiful lesbian dissuades him. Beautiful lesbian and Rob 17 then go back to her room and she makes him a cup of tea, deciding that she, like every teenage girl from the mid-2000s, likes Robert Pattinson more than girls. Hey, better to come to the party late than to not come at all, am I right? Rob 17, being a clone of virtue, insists that he doesn't want the tea, and leaves. only to get back to his room and find Android 18 and Nasha high on space meth. Nasha is overjoyed at the possibility of a three-way, while Rob 17 is less enthusiastic, in fact being a little bit jealous of 18's advances on his girlfriend, despite being the same person. Don't worry, we'll touch on this more later, or rather, how the film chooses not to focus on this point at all, despite it being rife with good opportunities for storytelling. Anyway, the three-way gets interrupted by now beautiful bisexual lady attempting to bring Rob 17 more tea. Goodness me, woman. Do you suppose the tea is a metaphor for something? Naturally, beautiful bisexual lady wants to report the multiples to the authorities, given that it is against the law for them to exist, but concedes that she likes Rob 17 and won't report the issue if she can have him. Nasha, having yet to be made airtight for her next spacewalk, refuses to share. Whether this is because she is an asshole or high as a kite on space meth, and therefore not thinking logically, remains unclear. Meanwhile, Android 18 learns that he, or rather Rob 17, was almost shot in the head by Marshall, and being the more aggressive of the Mickeys, decides he should take revenge by shooting the president on live TV, because apparently he finds the president's Saturday Night Live evangelical special program as annoying or something. Marshall is mid-speech about a shiny beautiful space rock. Yes, those are the words he used to describe the rock. I'm not kidding. No one knows more about rocks than me, and this rock is the most beautiful rock. Don't worry, I'll touch on this point later as well. When a baby creeper emerges from the rock and scares the crowd. This prevents Android 18 from shooting the president, as another creeper appears, this time being gunned down by the security detail. The other creeper is captured and both Mickeys and Nasha are taken into custody. They escape, only to be captured again and taken to the incinerator chamber, which is also part command center and animal research lab. For some reason. Marshall's wife then cuts off the baby creeper's tail to make sauce. There is literally a whole subplot around this that I have spared you from, because in all honesty the film gives this plot point as much attention as I'm about to in this review. The baby creeper's subsequent cries of pain alert the mother creeper and her many offspring who lay siege to the colony. Marshall then decides he will send the Mickeys out to collect more creeper tails for his wife, and if they don't do as ordered, he will blow them up with suicide vests that have a convenient remote with the numbers 17 and 18 labelled on it. Once the tails are collected for the sauce, Marshall then plans to gas all the creepers and claim victory over the colonised world. Nasha then takes a moment to berate Marshall for being a colonial robbing the native lands from the indigenous species of the planet, as well as calling him a moron for good measure. 17 and 18 head out into the frozen world, but rather than collecting tails as ordered, they attempt to communicate with the Mama Creeper, courtesy of a device that the homely bookworm scientist girl put together in the last 10 minutes while the Mickeys were in jail. The Mama Creeper explains that she wants her baby back, and if she doesn't get it, all the creepers will scream so loudly that the human's brains and eyes will explode. She also demands that because a human killed one of her children, one of them must die if there is to be peace. Seeing the Mickeys negotiate with the lead creeper makes Marshall mad, and his wife convinces him that he should be the one taking the creepers' surrender on film before bombing them into oblivion. So he gathers his crew and security detail to head out and do just that. Of course, Marshall takes away his best men to protect him, leaving Nasha a chance to save the baby and escape. Marshall's trigger-happy goons then fire their rockets and miss every creeper, eventually allowing Nasha to get outside and return the baby to her mother. While 17 translate the exchange, 18 goes after Marshall, grappling with him before detonating his suicide vest, killing himself and the president, and thus restoring balance in the eyes of the creepers. Marshall's wife is then taken into custody for being a bad leader, or something to that effect, but then kills herself off-screen. The cloning machine is destroyed in a groundbreaking ceremony in the following spring. The creepers concede that they were bluffing about the whole eyeballs exploding thing, and 17 and Nasha live happily ever after, but not before she wins a landslide election and becomes the new leader of the colony.
What the hell was that?
Mickey 17 is an odd film, and somewhere within the bloated 2.5-hour runtime, there is a decent sci-fi story. The problem, though, is that the narrative is about as focused as an early North Korean missile test, turbulently moving from point to point before exploding in an incoherent, expensive mess. There are plenty of hints towards Mickey's shady past and his friendship with Timo that really never eventuate and are just sort of disposed of towards the end of the film without any implications on the main story. And given that it was Timo's bad decisions that landed Mickey on the exploration mission in the first place, I would have expected it to have more relevance. There are also hints and attempts at love triangles, friendships and relationships that don't go anywhere, and in all honesty it feels like a lot of the character development was left on the cutting room floor in favour of the flashy visuals and on-the-nose pandering about corporations and religion being facets of evil that are exploitative of the working class and abusive to animals. I actually groaned at one point when Mark Ruffalo's character appeared on stage in an oversized suit, fake tan, and then did a Trump dance in front of a room of supporters wearing red hats. It was about as subtle as a brick through a stained glass window, and as an Aussie who doesn't follow American politics, that's saying something. While the director has stated that Marshall's character is not a direct parody of Trump, I don't think Ruffalo or the costume department got that message. And I find it a little convenient that Jun Ho was working on a script that was based on a true event that occurred in 2016 before being asked to write and direct Mickey 17. I wonder what world event he could have been referring to, and whether parts of that script may have ended up in a totally different film. Regardless, there are several scenes in the film that come across as preachy caricature and lack the subtlety and nuance of the theme discussions in Parasite. And the total lack of nuance around these points was absolutely immersion breaking. There are fewer things worse than watching a film that reminds you of the problems of the real world as seen through the eyes of Hollywood, in a genre that was originally designed to take you away from those problems, or at least dissect them in an intelligent and creative way through the use of the science fiction mise-en-scene. Did you just unironically use the term mise-en-scene? Yes, I did. So shut up, pseudo-intellectual tuner. Satire, and particularly political satire, requires a deft touch, balance, world-building, and most importantly, sincerity. Without that balance and sincerity, you run the risk of falling into lazy parody territory via overt comparisons to reality, which can and will absolutely kill the immersion bubble required for a science fiction story to stick the landing. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy a good-natured, well-delivered political satirical parody as much as the next invertebrate, and they're seemingly in short supply these days. And old Donald is a literal walking talking meme at this point, but that's not what Mickey 17 was marketed as, nor what it ended up delivering. Ruffalo's performance alongside Toni Collette's Ylpha were campy, cringe-inducing caricature that felt like something left over from a bad Saturday Night Live skit, to the point where I did a physical eye roll when Nasha attempts to make a grand speech about colonialism and indigenous life forms, playing the scene with a furious emotional gravitas against a literal clown villain. It was simply jarring, tone-deaf whiplash that was overly preachy that didn't need to be part of the film. Almost as if the director was worried that the point was going to be too subtle for an American audience. The tension between Mickey and Marshall in the novel stems from Marshall's religious views and the matters of the soul. He therefore sees Mickey, albeit as a useful tool, as some sort of affront to the divinity of one's soul, given his constant death and rebirth. The narrative is ripe for philosophical questions about the nature of self, the afterlife, immortality, and the tensions between science and religion, which is a big focus of the novel. But instead, the film focuses on poorly delivered political satire, skin-deep character interactions, and woolly mammoth pill bugs. Okay, I'm going to give the woolly mammoth pill bugs a pass because they're absolutely adorable, but that's not the point. Mickey 17 reeks of wasted potential, and in all honesty, I feel bad for Rob Pattinson, who, after a career of trying to break away from the shadow of Edward Cullen, with increasing success, might I add, deserved far better than this misstep. I can say that his performance, alongside the special effects, are the best parts of the film, and if the film were closer aligned to that of the book, it may have been a defining moment in his career. In short, there is a good story in Mickey 17, but it gets lost amidst the hang-ups of Hollywood, courtesy of a director that opted to focus on the exact things that people that go and see sci-fi are looking to get away from. So, my recommendation, read Mickey 7 and save your money, unless you enjoy on-the-nose ham-fisted political parodies that lack the nuance of films like Starship Troopers and RoboCop. But remember, I'm just a brainless lump whom will now rewatch District 9 in an attempt to ease the pain of this wasted sci-fi potential. Hooroo, Skipper.